All right, when someone gets here, can they let me know how the sound is? I'm going to set things up on my end. And actually work on something else while I'm doing that. Started just a little bit early, but there's a reason why I started early. All right, and can someone let me know how the sound is? Nice. Okay, perfect. I think I figured out what the issue was for the record, so I don't think we'll have any more audio issues going forward. Now, we were running just a little bit, well, early actually, because there was one thing I wanted to grab right as the stream started because it had just been released. So let me go ahead and show you guys that real quick here. And good morning to you as well. All right, here is what I was going to show you guys. Actually, I needed to get this down somehow. My S key isn't still working, so I need to copy down the S key for the stream. All right. So Shoebox just released these two coffees for anybody that's interested, and I just purchased both of them. They were released about 1 minute ago, actually, and I just want to make sure I got the right coffees. I know I picked up the Mario Hervas because that was extremely important for me to pick up. And then I do believe that the Columbia was the other coffee that they had released. Yep, the Yessica Para. So perfect. Yes, we have both of those two coffees, and I'm pretty excited for both of them. And let me go ahead and pull up the suggestions. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be picking out our coffees for the January 2026 Coffee of the Month. So as always, I have a list of suggestions from you guys from Instagram, and then I will take any suggestions from you guys on stream as well. And we'll go through all of those coffees, and hopefully by the end, we'll have a list of coffees for our nominees. And today, what I'm going to be drinking is the Alo Auction 205. It's a Lot EF1 Tamiru Tedes. It is a Eclipse fermentation processed Ethiopian coffee from Craft Coffee Roasters out of Hong Kong. So this was a sample given to me by Airworks, and I'm curious about it. I have not tried it yet, so cheers to everyone. And my coaster just fell. It's decent. There's one other coffee I'm working on from Craft that I'm surprised at how much I'm enjoying. But yeah, what are you guys drinking today? So I'm always curious to hear what you guys might be working on. Cheers. All right, let's go ahead and get started. And the first suggestion we got was from is it drafting specialist, and they suggested, and I really like this theme. This is probably going to be our theme, and we're probably going to work off this going forward. We should start the year on a clean slate, hence a washed coffee, maybe. So, obviously, being a massive fan of wash processed coffees, I very much enjoy that suggestion. So, we're probably going to be looking for wash processed coffees. We got some similar suggestions from some other people as well. So, that's something that we will work off of from there. I'm going to pull up my notepad for coffees that we want to take notes on. Drinking September's Tioxy, banger as always. That's interesting, Midnight Salsa. I've heard from Kyle that sometimes they enjoy the Tioxy better than other times, but I do believe that this is supposed to be one of the better Tioxys. So it sounds like it's a good one. Sounds like you're enjoying it as well. All right. And we don't have a specific coffee that was suggested to us from that, but one coffee roaster I did want to take a quick look at while we're on the topic of Shoebox was MinMax, because as I was brewing something this morning, it did remind me of something from MinMax that I tried at an event, and I'm just kind of curious to see what they have right now. Yeah, a lot of wash processed coffees. So I feel like if we're going to need something, then we can probably find something from MinMax. It's been a while since we've reviewed them. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next suggestion, and it comes from Zach, and Zach suggested blends from American Roasters. So if you guys have any really good blends, then let me know, but I can't think of any blends off the top of my head. We looked at Blind Tiger last week, so why don't we take a look at Blind Tiger again, as I do know that they have a blend. It's Tampa. We're looking for the one in Maine. There we go. I don't know if this is something you guys actually want us to do, a blends review series, because we've had some people that really like the idea, but I don't think too many people drink blends. And speaking of wash processed coffees, it looks like we do have a new one from Blind Tiger, so I will happily put this on our list for right now. But other than that, yeah, they do have their Happy Lamp blend, which I know they've had for a bit. All right, let's go ahead and move on. We'll keep the blends in mind as well, especially if we can find wash blends. Zach also suggested coffee over $100 a bag. And that's going to be another interesting one. So if you guys have any coffees that cost over $100, then let us know. There's one coffee roaster I know almost always has a coffee of that price, and it's Gardelli. Like if we can find the Eugenoides coffees, those would be over $100. And I guess Gardelli's a little less expensive than normal right now. We're looking at only $50 for a bag and a lot of advertisement. The other place that has sometimes really expensive coffees is Coffea Circular. I think it's a matter of finding the longboard coffees. Those are usually the very expensive ones. All right, Gideon, Norwegian roasters, you haven't done Yaku. Actually, I do think we have one Yaku roast review. We also have a couple of Langora ones. I don't remember if we have Paula. I'm going to take a look at those real quick. But yeah, I'm going to double check too. I know we have a Yaku review because it came in one of the subscription boxes from one of the subscription services in Europe. They do feature a lot in our advent calendar, so that's why I always wanted to do more reviews of their coffees, because their non-processed stuff is actually pretty decent. Langora, we've done a handful of reviews of. I know we've done a bunch of Langora. I kind of want to take a look at them too. And get in your right. Coffea Circular always has Panamanian coffees over $100. Yeah, less interested in blends, frankly. I appreciate the transparency. I'm not the biggest fan of blends. I don't think we've reviewed any blends on this channel. Maybe there's one that I'm missing. I think single cup reviews we've done blends, but they're not usually my go-to. Did you buy anything from Shoebox this week? Yes, we began the stream with me actually purchasing the 2 coffees from Shoebox that they just released, the Mario Hervas and then that washed Colombian Gesha. So the 2 brand new coffees. We'll be working on both of those. Yeah, I don't think we're going to find a lot of $100 bags of coffee, but we'll go ahead and take a look at those Norwegian, or not Norwegian, but Nordic coffee roasters. Peppercorn black tea. Their bags used to look different from what I remember. It looks like they might have changed to boxes. I know it's kind of boring, but we'll get into it a little bit later as to why, but I'm kind of looking for a wash processed Ethiopian coffee. Why is it saying 2020 harvest coming soon unless this is an old website? Yeah, it is. That's why. I saw MinMax offered Suke Quo honey. I had that same coffee from Yaku recently, and based on what you said, you looked for in Ethiopian honey processed coffees. It could be a good fit. The MinMax one, I mean. Okay, that's good to know, Kent. I do want to write that down then because, as mentioned, I kind of want to put MinMax in our Coffee of the Month nominees. My only concern is that they might be one of those coffee roasters that completely dominates the poll. The one and only time we've had them in one of our Coffee of the Month polls, they completely dominated. And thank you. That's not Hyaku Norway. Thank you guys for letting me know. I kind of figured that because the boxes looked different. This is what I'm used to. And the fact that it was saying 2020. I think if things continue to go this way, then we might be able to do an an American and a European pick, and then have two polls on that. But I'll happily write down something from Yaku. I would love to do another review of them. All right, so let's see what else we've got. The other suggestions were, is that Cocoa? Yeah, that's them. I've seen their name before. I don't think I've had any of their coffee from what I can remember. I think we looked at them previously too. Ever since we had such great results with Honduran coffees, I've been keeping an eye on any Honduran coffee I see when looking at a coffee roaster. Their taster pack might be interesting too. I do imagine their profile is probably pretty similar to a lot of their contemporaries. Bunch of naturals. For anybody that is joining a little bit late, the first suggestion we got was for New Year clean slate, so clean wash processed coffees. Doesn't look like they have any wash processed Ethiopian coffees right now. And let's see what the other suggestions were. Supreme Roastworks and Paula. Do we not have any Paula reviews, actually? We do not. So for context with Paula, there was one Paula coffee I was working on. I just didn't really like it whatsoever, so we completely scrapped the review. It's one of the rare times that we scrap a review. ScoutRush.com. Happy New Year. Happy New Year right back to you, too. It's been a really nice start to this new year, if I'm being completely honest. Not necessarily the best coffees, but a good start. And for those that are curious as to what was going on with the audio in the past, my computer had set it to an AI noise canceling system, and it was terrible. So when I was going through and fixing things last night, I noticed that that was what was causing the issue. So I do hope that it sounds a lot better now. From what I could tell, it was a lot better when I was trying it out last night. All right, we'll write down the Supreme Roastworks Doncha right there. And that just means we need to find a couple more European coffee roasters. And I'm going to write down MinMax for right now, too. We'll see how that goes. They'll probably be our cutoff because, again, I think that they would dominate any poll. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next suggestion. And the next suggestion comes from Neil, and they suggested a Coffee Collective. So that's perfect. That actually fits into our theme. I was looking at coffee collectives website just a couple of days ago. I do know that Airworks is going to be bringing them in for anyone in the United States that wants to pick up some Coffee Collective. And if they have a wash processed Ethiopia, that would be perfect. They do not. Actually, this Aga. I don't think we've done a full bag review of Aga. I will happily write that down. And I wouldn't mind if it won the poll either, because it would mean that we could just bother Airworks to have that brought in. So we'll go ahead and write down Coffee Collective. And it does fit into our theme of Nordic-based coffee roasters too, actually. I guess I should say Scandinavian-based coffee roasters. Okay, let's move on. And next we got a suggestion from Sean OG. They suggested Rowan has a Pink Bourbon and then Cacao and Nibs coffee roasters. So those are two suggestions. Let's go ahead and take a look at Rowan real quick. It was Rowan Coffee, yeah. I feel like they've featured in previous Coffee of the Month polls. Now that I'm looking at them, they definitely have. And I'm sure that it's going to be one of these two Colombias. Probably this one. The other one's probably a natural. Yeah, there's our Pink Bourbon. I'll ask you guys, what do you think? Do you think a theme of just starting out the year with wash processed coffees, or do you think maybe going a little bit more specific as to washed Ethiopian coffees? Oh, they're both Pink Bourbons. It's easy. It's really easy to find wash processed Ethiopian coffees from pretty much any coffee roaster. Cocoa and Nibs. Will you have a look at Still Coffee Roasters? They got some new coffees. Absolutely, we'll take a look at them. I think more specific is nice for comparison. Okay, sounds good. I think that's the way that we will lean. We did get a number of suggestions of coffees that are either washed or just a little bit different, but I don't mind being very specific with the wash processed Ethiopian suggestion too. Let's take a quick look at Cocoa and Nibs, and then we'll go to Still. So this coffee roaster was actually highly praised by, what's the name of them? Thankfully. So Thankfully reached out to us and told us that there was a coffee that Cocoa and Nibs had released that they were a really big fan of. And Cocoa and Nibs has been following us for a bit, and they also reached out to us somewhat recently, and we told them to talk to us when they had something that they really wanted to highlight. And I can't remember which coffee it was, but there was one coffee they were releasing that they were extremely excited about. I might need to ask them if they still have this Alo Coffee Field Blend. But like Rising, I do believe that the roaster is pretty young. I think that they're 17, 18 years old. And they've had a lot of praise from some of their contemporaries. So they're a coffee roaster to keep an eye on. I'm going to write them down and reach out to the owner after this stream and ask. A lot of the time, coffee roasters will have a little bit left over of something that's already sold out. All right, let's take a look at Still. I got the Cremo from Rowan for Christmas, and I'm enjoying it as expected. That's good to know. All right. Rowan, in general, I've heard a lot of positive things about. Still yet to try any of their coffees, but one that's been somewhat on our radar for a bit. Let's take a look at Still. I feel like this is one of those coffee roasters where they're going to continue to get suggested to us until we're able to purchase something from them. Right now, it looks like everything on their website is sold out. Okay, that's unfortunate. Might have to revisit them when they have coffees again, but a couple of Kenyan coffees and some Ethiopians. So they would have fit well into the theme. Just unfortunate that everything's out right now. I also need to ask Airworks about Still. See if they've had any intention of bringing them in at any point. I'm gonna write that down too. All right, let's move on to the next suggestion, and this comes from Aditya, and they suggested fried huts. So they have an Armor washed, and then a Diego Horta infused. So we'll take a look at both of those. Oh, press home on their page. Let's go back to Still then. Still showing everything on my end as being sold out. It's not sure what's going on with that one. I'm guessing that if they have RMR, it's probably Omni roasted. There's the Diego Horta that they were talking about. Yeah, of course it's Omni roasted. And nothing wrong with that. I just like Fried Hat's filter profile a lot more. I will just say, I'll pause for a second and say, isn't it wild that so many coffee roasters now have RMR these days? I just remember 2 years ago, we could only find it from basically, was it 3 years ago? We could only find it from 2 roasters. We found it from Apollon's Gold and then a random coffee roaster out in Germany that we had to pull a lot of strings to get our hands on. So just funny now that you find all of these coffee roasters carrying it. I would love to try this. So if I was at a coffee shop or Airworks was bringing it in, I would pick up that coffee instantly. Let's take a look at the other one, that Diego Horta infused. Fried Hats has so many coffees these days. Tice in UK has a Sedan Rume Extra Light, listed extremely light. Take a look at Tice. I do believe I saw them at on a website somewhere recently that we were able to purchase them from. So if that's the case, then it would be nice to have something a little bit more easily accessible to us when it comes to that coffee roaster. So I acknowledge it's an infused. Has anyone actually tried this coffee? We've had good results with Diego Horta. It tastes like electricity. Gotta love that flavor note. This is definitely one of those coffees where I would be happy to try a single cup of it somewhere. I don't know if a full review is something that I'm dying for anytime soon. Just gonna scan their website real quick because they have a number of pretty interesting coffees actually. All right. I don't know what their shipping is. I've only ever purchased coffees from them at coffee shops or from Airworks. Take a look at Tice. Have you ever tried Clover coffee from Paris? I have not. I do not believe I had heard of them actually before this. Kevin says, just joined Shoebox's Mario Hair Bus. Already purchased that coffee. Of course, we purchased that coffee. So that's the very first thing we did when we got on stream was purchase that coffee because I could definitely not resist a Mejorado coffee from Shoebox. Technically, it's their first Mejorado coffee. The Ecuador they released, I want to say on one of their first few drops was technically at TP Cup from what I understand. Coin Coffee Club has some interesting coffees to order. Yeah, we'll definitely take a look at them. I was actually looking at them last night for a different reason, but take a look at that Tice coffee here. And got a lot of super processed Colombian coffees. I remember this coffee roaster because I still think it's wild to see a co-fermented Kenyan coffee. That's so wild to me. Just a matter of time before we see other origins with co-fermented coffees. I believe this is the one you're probably referring to. Extremely light. It doesn't really fit into our theme, but I think Tice is a coffee roaster that I'll need to continue to keep an eye on. They've always had so many interesting coffees from every single time I've taken a look at them. Granted, some of them are pretty far out there in terms of the processing. But if there's one coffee from this list that I'm still interested in, it's that co-fermented Kenyan coffee, which I feel like a lot of people would be surprised I'm interested in that, but different processing like that for a Kenyan coffee is always just kind of unique. And it's also because I've never seen that from anybody. This coffee would be my safe choice, though. Medium light. Okay, I'm very interested in that extremely light now, given that everything else they have listed as a medium light for their profile. Is that Huan Coffee Club? Let me make sure I'm spelling that correct. It's actually, before we go there, let's take a look at Clover real quick. I don't want to miss a comment. I know Airworks was recently in Paris, so I'm sure he went here. If I remember correctly, I think I saw a photo of him at this shop. You know, it doesn't really go with the other coffees that we have, as they're all Scandinavian or Nordic, but I'm happy to put them on the European side of things because we do have a wash processed Ethiopian coffee. So we'll write them down. Worst case scenario, we can just replace them with something else later, but I'm happy to put them on this list, especially given that they have Putuccio. And I love trying that coffee because unlike Pepe's Tioxy, I think Putuccio is much more consistent these days. Like, you can have a good Putuccio from pretty much anyone. I don't think I've had a bad iteration of this coffee from any coffee roaster as of right now. We have a couple of reviews coming up from some pretty notable coffee roasters as well. So this Clover right here, I'm very interested in, honestly, for myself personally. I'll also ask Airworks if they plan on bringing them in at any point. Cofea Circular are offering some Putuccio. Could be an interesting compare with September. We already purchased it, so we should be getting that within the next few days. I'm pretty curious about it. We also purchased the Pepe Gesha, which it's very rare for us to purchase the second coffee, a coffee the same coffee a second time around, but yeah, we'll see how that one goes. And oh, I should get some shoebox. Definitely should get some shoebox. It's always a good idea to get some shoebox. Obadiah is a roaster that does clean coffee very well. Obadiah is interesting, and we can take a look at them, but I'm kind of looking forward through some of these comments. Obadiah has been very developed from everything that I've had, and it's entirely possible that their profile has changed or there's something different, but I've had quite a few coffees from Obadiah exclusively at coffee shops, and I was never the biggest fan of them. I'm happy to take a look and potentially review them at some point because they're surprisingly easy to get around here, so we'll take a look too. You can't make sure to miss Kevin's suggestion, but I just had a look at Still, and it's still, and for me, it's available. I'm not entirely sure what's going on, Mike. You saw it on the stream. Every time we've taken a look at them, we've gone to the homepage. It just shows everything is sold out. They definitely have interesting coffees too. And had a Sudan Rume from the same farm as Tice from a local roaster. It was very strange, not in a bad way though. Brown sugar and wild jujube acidity. Sudan Rume is interesting in general. I think we're going to probably end up reviewing more of their coffees. The one we had last year from Gut & Co was maybe not necessarily the best coffee, but yeah, we'll see. Smeargel says, I'm drinking Ethiopian Aloe Village natural pea berry from Clover, really liking it at the moment. That's good to know. What's the profile of Clover? I assume if they're from Paris, they're probably pretty similar to some of their contemporaries, either somewhere similar to Kawa or Substance. Yeah, let's take a look now at the suggestion from Kevin. HYUNAH. I was surprised we never looked at them before this stream. I'm surprised nobody had suggested them to us before, if my memory serves me correct. And this is what I was mentioning about Tithe, was I saw that they had Tithe while I was looking through their coffees yesterday. But since I was looking through their coffees yesterday, I do know that they have an in-stock option. So we'll see. If by chance they happen to have that coffee from Tithe, then maybe I could just purchase it from them. So for anybody in the United States, this is an option for you to pick up. Hold on. Okay, I'm going to purchase this real quick. Bear with me for a second. Okay, we've got it. So for anybody that doesn't know, this was a collaboration with, I want to say, this coffee club and Kimoy Harry, of course, of Moonwake fame, and good friends with Brian Kwan. When I looked last night, this coffee was sold out, and that's why I just chalked up to the fact that we weren't going to get it. But I was very curious about this coffee when I saw him post about it. I love the designs of these bags, so we'll see how these turn out. But I'm very excited about this coffee, and that's why as soon as I saw it, I said, okay, let's go ahead and purchase it. But yeah, for anybody in the United States, this coffee club actually has some pretty interesting offerings. Some Thoughtful, some Flower Child, which we'll get into a little later. But yeah, I think that's a first. I think that's the first time we were looking through and found something that we immediately wanted to purchase. So very excited about that coffee. He's an ex-April roaster, I think. Okay, that would make a lot of sense. BQ featured them on his channel, if I remember correctly. We're going through a lot, so I'm trying to remember which one did Brian feature on his channel. I've been craving French coffee. That term is hilarious because if you would have said you're craving French coffee a couple of years ago, people would, well, at least people in the United States would have assumed that you meant some very dark profiled coffee. But these days, the term French has a completely different connotation to it. You meant the club. That makes a lot of sense. And that's probably why we've had some more people suggesting them to us. Okay. Yeah. And I think that's the first. I think that's the first time we stopped midstream to purchase a coffee, but I could not resist purchasing that one. Where are they from? Zurich? Oh yeah, back to our suggestions. The other one was the Esmeralda washed Alita Ketwai from Rose. I don't see it. I'm pretty sure that they've only ever had the natural. I've seen the natural a lot. I have heard extremely positive things about Rose recently. We have some really old Rose reviews, but nothing for a bit. And I've heard mixed things, but more recently, a lot of the feedback on them has been extremely positive. So we might need to try them again. By the way, for those that don't know, if you really want some Terraform coffees. I do believe that Airworks is bringing them back in again, but for right now, if you need something sooner, then Kumquat is currently offering them. And everything from Rose is out of stock. You can't advertise a Benjamin Pass coffee on the front of your page and then not have a Benjamin Pass coffee. That's unfortunate. They have a lot of Ethiopian coffees, but as soon as I saw this, I was immediately interested in what on earth this coffee was. All right, let's go ahead and move on. Next suggestion we got was from Skibi, and they suggested a few roasters to recommend, Populous and Clover. So there, we took a look at Clover, and we have Clover on our list. So that actually helps. Now we have a couple of suggestions from Clover. I'll keep them on the list. They'll be one of our European nominees. And let's take a look at Populous. And I feel like I've heard back from you guys about this coffee roaster, and there's been a lot of mixed feedback, but generally speaking, there's been a lot of mixed feedback on German coffee roasters. Being said, I'm still very much open to trying them, especially given that I know they have some Honduran coffees. Especially this one. I want this coffee. That Benjamin Pass from Fruit last year completely changed my opinion on Honduran coffees. Couple that with the Caballero from SL28 and the Mario Moreno that we had from Fruit as well. Don't get me wrong, I was always a fan of Honduran coffees, but that took me from being kind of a fringe fan to being a big fan, especially of coffees from Santa Barbara. And there had been some of you guys that had been telling us that coffees from Santa Barbara were underrated and some of the best out there. And after that experience last year, I can definitely agree. Santa Barbara coffees are very exciting. And this one right here is one that I would love to pick up. If they have a boring old wash processed Ethiopian, we can toss them into the theme and then see if they win. I have no idea what the shipping is, but they're the third coffee roaster I'm going to ask. Airworks about. And then Kevin, and you're on stream too, you suggested Flower Child. So let's take a look at Flower Child. I would say Clover is somewhere between Substance and Datura. Oh, okay. That's pretty light then. That's good to know. That definitely helps. And now I'm extremely surprised that Airworks has not brought them in, but it's entirely possible he tried working with them. It just never worked out. Also kind of strange why on your end, Still coffees were sold out when I visited isn't. Let me take a look on my phone real quick. Maybe I've been blacklisted from Still, even though I've never actually purchased anything from them or reviewed from them before. That is strange. You're right. For whatever reason, on the desktop, it's sold out. But when I go to it on my mobile phone, it is available. And they do have plenty of coffees. Let's see what... So not as exciting when I have to look at it on my phone as opposed to on the stream itself. The Nestor Lasso coffee is definitely not top of my list, but they do have a wash processed Ethiopian coffee, the Alto Sama. Peruvian Gesha. I think if we extend it to 8 for European coffee roasters, then we could probably add them on there. It's not out of the realm of possibility that we can extend it to 8, given we already have 6. So it'd be a lot of coffee roasters to do a poll for. But I'm not opposed to it. There are a lot of really good options. Okay, let's take a look at Flower Child. And I was really, really hoping that Flower Child would have some boring old wash processed Ethiopian coffee, because I would love to feature Flower Child, not just in our Coffee of the Month poll, but I would love to review more of their coffees in general. You guys were really big fans of Flower Child last year. I heard so many positive things. I think that they're improving, and it seemed to me like they've been flying under the radar recently. It's not as easily accessible for us these days as there used to be a coffee shop that carried their coffee a lot, but I have not seen them around the area recently, which is unfortunate. I also did not know Miguel Doda had the Sidra. I remember when they first released it, I took a look at it, but obviously the Dodas have some very good Mejorado coffees. All right, let's see here. Julian, any recommendations where I could go to grab something in Seattle area to drink immediately? Wasn't seeing much at Analog recently. Want something other than Heart. Out of curiosity, have you had one of their Heart pour-overs or one of their Heart drips? Because I'm just very impressed every single time I go. And I really can't understand it because I brew Heart at home and it's not as good. I go to Sound and Fog and it's not as good. I go to Heart. I've been to Hearts, I want to say about a half dozen times to have their coffee recently, and it's nowhere near as good as Analog brews it. Analog, for whatever reason, just does an exceptional job of brewing Hearts coffees. And I love to say that because it's just that impressive. Other than that, where to go? And you could go to one of the Airworks events. Obviously, Airworks has some very interesting coffees, but if you need something immediately, that's really tough. Outside of Analog, that's the only place I can think of in the Seattle area that consistently does really good coffees, but it seems to almost exclusively be Heart. Everything else I have from them, I don't want to say is necessarily bad. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Stamp Act, and they say I can brew say as good as them. And I'm trying to think what else they carry. They carried Le Cabra recently. I like the way I brew Le Cabra a little bit better, but for whatever reason, their brew of Heart is just exceptional. Let's see here. I know it doesn't fit the profile theme, but did you get the HLE Natural from September? I did not. I remember seeing that coffee, and it was a very expensive coffee. I think it's the most expensive coffee that September has ever released. And I said that maybe if it was a wash processed coffee, I'd be a little bit more interested in it. But at that price for a natural, I do think it was a little bit of a hard sell. And Alioski says, hey there. So, hey, right back to you. 100. Let's see here. Less than $100. Hacienda La Esmeralda 2025 auction Gesha Duo set from 1/2 Coffee Roasters. I'll take a look at that. If you saw our recent coffee roaster tier list, then you saw that I was not the biggest fan of the experience that we had from 1/2. And I think the last time I met up with Airworks, I asked them if they were planning on bringing in 1/2 at any point. And I don't think that they had any plans to do so, but 1/2 always has really interesting coffees. The very first time I took a look through their website, I was just really impressed by all of the offerings, and that's why we went pretty experimental and just picked out 3 coffees that were pretty interesting. So let's see. If you have a good way of, it's probably going to be somewhere over here. They have so many things on their website. I'm just trying to narrow it down. Their website is massive. I'll pause for a second and take a look through the comments and we'll try to find it. By the way, Ilse and Hydrangea both have washed Vicado Agas Kilbesa. That's good to know. We'll take a look at both of them. I don't think either of them have won a Coffee of the Month poll over the past year. I know Ilse hasn't. Actually, maybe they have. Is there any method to reduce resting time heavily? There is. I feel like it's very volatile and I don't always like doing it. So there are some coffee roasters that will like grind the beans 24 hours ahead of time. And that sometimes helps, I suppose. I think April's the one that suggested that. So I think they have a video on that too. Other than that, I usually just prefer to wait, but it's easy when we have like 30 bags of coffee sitting around. I hope to get some next time I'm there. Usually I avoid drip from coffee shops. Actually, drip is my go-to. And if you speak to a lot of baristas, they will say that they swear by their drip because that's the one coffee they can keep consistent and they have a good recipe for. I know that back when Dale was still running Roots, he was very insistent that they worked very hard on their drip, and I liked their drip of Say. They had one of the better Say drips that I'd had in a while. And thank you for the input, of course, no problem. Airworks previously featured 43 and Purus from Vietnam. Did you happen to get anything from Purus? Yes, we got 2 coffees. We are working on the, I want to say, Aloe Natural, and then we have the Kenyan coffee from them as well, a wash process Kenyan coffee. Both of those are improving. I've had the best results from both of them recently. So those reviews should be coming out some point here in the near future. And this is the set that you were referring to, so just happened to work out pretty well. Yeah. That's some pretty heavy processing. 15 grams. At the risk of losing this webpage, I'm curious how much that is. Oh, that's not terrible, actually. No, wait, if it's 7 times 25. So yeah, it's about $175. All right. I think I did my math wrong. No, it's about $175. That's crazy for 2 15-gram doses of a coffee. That's some of the most expensive. That fits our $100 theme. Let's see here. Fuglin has a washed Ethiopia Kokosa sourced from them. Good experience with Fuglin's coffees in the past. We'll definitely take a look at them as well. Let's go take a very quick look at Ilsa and Hydrangea. It would be fun to put Hydrangea and Min-Max in the same pool, given that there's a very close connection between the two roasters and businesses. Hydrangea, of course, being somewhat of a mentor to Min-Max on roasting. There you go. That helps with our Ethiopian lineup. It's been a bit since we've had Ilsa, and I've heard from some people that the recent experiences they've had with Ilsa have been interestingly underdeveloped. And given our previous experiences with them in the past have been a little bit more developed, I'm kind of curious to figure out if maybe they've adjusted their profile to a very light profile. They do have Petruccio. So were they to win the poll, I would happily pick up Petruccio from them. Let's take a look at Hydrangea. Our Monday review is Hydrangea, so stay tuned for that. And they have it too. That gives us 5 American coffee roasters, assuming Cocoa and Nibs doesn't have anything. And if Hydrangea were to win, I would happily pick up this Alburo from them. All right, we'll take a look at Fuglin. I almost said the same thing yesterday, that September coffee, LOL. Yeah, it's funny. All right, let's take a look at that Fuglin coffee. The coffees I had from their Nordic roastery, I enjoyed a lot more than the ones I had from their Japanese roastery. Okay, there we go. That also fits into our Nordic theme. I'll happily put it on there. So yeah, as things stand right now, we have a ridiculous amount of polls to put out. But that's fine. Okay, let's move on. And this is one of the main reasons why we had the washed Ethiopian theme, is because RDI BBZ suggested washed Ethiopians. And for anybody that might have come here a little late, the very first suggestion we had was for New Year, clean slate, so clean coffees, and this theme fits perfectly. So we have two more suggestions, first of which comes from Simcosi, and they suggested Exposure Therapy's new lineup. Let's take a look. Exposure Therapy's new drop. And we did pick up a couple of coffees from Exposure Therapy. So for anybody in the United States, then Airworks is the exclusive provider of Exposure Therapy. And I was extremely disappointed to find out that they weren't carrying this coffee, as I wanted to bring that one back in. I do believe that the roaster for, or the owner and roaster for Exposure Therapy is pretty young, but if there's one slight suggestion I have, it's removing the sold out or putting it in some sort of archive page, because yeah, when looking through this, I have to just kind of go through those real quick. I believe that the coffees we picked up were this one right here, and then one of the Yemen coffees, because people were really excited about the Yemen coffees last time around. So I think that these are the two that we picked up. They don't fit into our theme, but kind of curious to see how those turn out. Exposure Therapy has to be one of the most praised coffee roasters I've seen over the last year, as I have heard so many people say that they're among some of the best in all of Asia. And then the last suggestion was from the Real John Coffee, and they suggested Lantern Coffee. So let's take a look. I've never heard of this coffee roaster. Unless this is the one, yeah, I think this is the one we were looking at last stream. 43 has 90 plus Juliet for $228. Does that fit the theme as well? That would definitely fit the over $100 theme. Wow, 228 euros. I'll take a look at that. Yeah, this is the one that we were looking at last week. You know, we have a slot in the American category, so if we have a washed Ethiopian coffee, then I'm happy to put it in there. No wash processed Ethiopian coffee right now. A Honduras blend, though. And I do remember last time around they were saying that it's not necessarily the best website, but we've definitely seen worse websites out there. I can tell you that for certain. I'll take a look at what we have after we take a look at 43. There you go. Does that really translate to 200 and however much that was? 228 euros? Says Pepe and Francisco Ventimilla washed Mejorado. We'll take a look at it. Say won one of our polls recently, so they're ineligible for this one, but I'll happily take a look at that one. Is it still available for purchase too? That would be kind of surprising. I'm going to double check that. Is that actually translates to that much? I believe you. It's surprising. Yeah, that's right. Wow. A honey processed Panamanian coffee. One thing I would suggest for 43 is you actually have to do some digging to find out what the origin of these coffees are. Like, I know this is a Panama. If it comes from 90 plus estates, then it's going to be a Panamanian coffee, but it doesn't actually say the origin anywhere. It has a little map, but it doesn't specify. For anybody that does want to purchase some stuff from Pepe, I've heard from Pepe directly that he's sending some really nice coffees to 43. So I believe those will be coming out at some point in the future. I believe they were Mejorado coffees as well. Oh, got an Ethiopian coffee here. And we rated 43 really high They definitely have some very nice coffees. For anybody that is looking for something that is very sweet and very traditional, we're working on this review right now. Of the coffees we're working on as of this moment, this is the coffee I've been the most impressed with. It is very, very sweet. It's the best experience we've had with a Java coffee up to this point. Yeah, they have some really interesting coffees. Okay, I'll take a look at what we have on our list. So we have Blind Tiger, Minmax, Rowan, Ilsa, and Hydrangea. So we have 5. So we might need to cross something off there. So I'll take a look. Maybe the Blind Tiger coffee, which would be unfortunate. I might just buy the Blind Tiger coffee by myself. And then we have 8 European coffee roasters. So we'll probably have to narrow that down. And we have 7 actually. So we'll need 1 more. So yeah, that's 12 different coffee roasters. So if you guys have any other suggestions, then let us know. But we'll take a look at that Say coffee real quick. Surely won't be hard to find a washed Ethiopian coffee from anyone. Yeah, I don't see that Pepe and Francisco coffee on Say's website. The other thing about that is we reviewed that coffee in the past. All right, so yeah, we're a little ahead of time, and we did an amazing job of actually getting all of these roasters. That's all of these suggestions that we had on Instagram. So if you guys have any more suggestions, we will happily take a look. Someone at Reddit wanted to buy Finca Lord Voldemort. I just said, oh no, Lord Voldemort. Yeah. I like Moonwake. I like a lot of people. I like the owner. I get along really well with the owner. I like Harry, of course. But that coffee was easily one of my least favorite coffee of the month coffees we've ever had. Currently drinking the cheapest offering from Puris Sad Poor Noise. That's unfortunate. Cheapest offering from Puris. The coffee from Puris that kept coming as a suggestion to us from Airworks was, I think that they have a Vietnamese coffee that he said was outstanding. I have a sample of it, and he keeps asking me if I brewed the sample, and maybe we should have brewed the sample for this stream. Instead, we opted to brew, for anybody that's late, this is the sample that we brewed. It's a Aloe Auction coffee from Craft Coffee Roasters, and truth be told, it's not necessarily my favorite. Eclipse Fermentation. Yeah, we have other coffees from them. They have a hybrid washed aloe that turned out to be very enjoyable. Try Fathers again and see how they are. That's a good point. Savage won't fit into our theme, unfortunately, because they're exclusively Panamanian, but it is always worth taking a look at what they have. I hope they have something new, because usually when we look, it's a lot of the same stuff, because obviously they're carrying the same green that they have. Iridescence, of course. I'm sure it'll happen at one point. I'm sure it'll happen where we have just a theme be Savage coffees, Diego's coffees, Pepe's coffees, because they each have kind of their own roastery. So Savage, of course, this one right here in Florida. Diego, native out of Texas. And then Pepe has Instinto, though I have not heard anything from Instinto if they're actually still roasting and shipping out coffees as of this moment. I might need to ask Pepe on that one. I mean, if we were to pick up coffees from Savage, obviously it would be the Terroir and then the Iridescence. I think that they also have this washed Caturra, which probably isn't the latest coffee out there, but yeah, they're safe washed options. And then Fathers. And they're not Prague. They're is it Ostrava? As somebody that's Oh, check ancestry. I should know that. Check descent. Not a single wash processed Ethiopian coffee, unfortunately. That's anaerobic. It's been a bit since I've seen them at a coffee shop too. It's kind of unfortunate. And they have downsized their bags to 250 grams. I remember the last time we purchased from them, their bag texture had also changed. It went from being that kind of interesting plastic to a little bit more paper-like. So I do wonder if that's the bag designs that they've opted to stick with. This website is loading really slow. And that's on me. Father's does have a washed Ethiopian coffee. That's perfect. We'll go ahead and put them in there. That gives us 8 total. This one's a natural. They love that blueberry cheesecake note for their Ethiopian coffees. All right, perfect. That is 8. And we have at least 4 American coffee roasters. So yes, as things stand right now, the American coffee roasters we have is Blind Tiger, Minmax, Rowan, Ilsa, and Hydrangea. I'll double check. I think that if either of those two, Ilsa or Hydrangea, have won one of our Coffee of the Month polls recently, I don't think Hydrangea has ever won one, if I do recall. But Ilsa I know has. Then we'll just substitute them for Blind Tiger. And then from Europe, we have Yaku, Supreme Roastworks, Coffee Collective, Clover, Populous, Still, Fuglin, and Fathers. So I'm going to ask Airworks about Still, Clover, and Populous because I don't know if they're bringing them in at any point. Yeah, we'll go ahead and leave this stream right there unless you guys have anything else. Let's take a look. So it looks like we are good. So if you had to recommend one Panamanian Gesha on sale now, what would it be? Hi, and hi back to you, Akashna03. Just joined. Just joined at the end of the stream, unfortunately. So we have picked out our coffees. I'm just sitting back answering a quick question real quick, and then we'll probably be good unless you guys have anything else or any other questions. But thanks for the stream. Of course, seems like it's ending. Yes, bad timing. It happens. If one Panamanian Gesha on sale right now. Okay. Who has anything that I would be... why don't we take a look at Datura? This is the first coffee that came to mind after thinking on it. It's sold out. Okay, well, never mind. This would have been the one that I'd suggested, largely based off of what I had heard from someone else. They said that they were really enjoying this coffee. It lived up to the hype that Datura had, so that's unfortunate that it's sold out. Other than that, this one sounds nice, and maybe I do wonder if Substance has any of the really nice Panamanian Geshas right now. It's always a safe choice. Deborah Terroir from Substance. It's a very good coffee, so that's a safe option. I've heard good things about this coffee too. Have not tried it myself personally. Surprised we aren't working on any Panamanian Geshas with the exception of one from Craft as of this moment. So I think as a safe choice, that's the first thing that would come to mind. Maybe as a little bit more of a slightly risky choice, probably this Hacienda Barbara. Let's see here. And drank my last dose of the Tabe Burka from Datura today. Kind of curious how that one was. I obviously really enjoyed the Tabe Burka from Substance. Like Datura Janssen Los Alpes 926 Natural. I think I saw that one. There it is. That's the 908. Maybe I didn't see it. There it is. No. Datura has so many high-end coffees. Looks like it might not be on their website anymore. There it is, actually. Sold out, unfortunately. H&S Coffee has Deborah Arill. I will say this. I think that H&S was supposed to send us a sample of that, but we never got that sample, which is unfortunate because I would have loved to have told you guys how it is. Probably skipping the El Diviso coffee. Yeah, there it is. I really would have loved to have tried this coffee, but I'm sure somebody might have a sample for us. You saw the new Min-Max Normal People subscription? I did. I would say that oftentimes I'm a little too dialed into the information that people have, and I found that to be hilarious, especially the photo that Brian posted for that BK. And then there was a suggestion for Archers. For those that have never had Archers in the United States, I believe that Airworks is bringing them back in soon. I've not looked through what we might be able to pick up from them yet. What's happening at Min-Max? Min-Max is doing a new subscription, essentially. So you can actually subscribe to Min-Max, which I find kind of funny. And it's called a Normal People subscription. Oh, you know what would be really fun and kind of evil is to put a lot of the Bana people in one coffee of the month poll. So have all of the most popular, so like Min-Max, Shoebox, who else can I think of? Exposure Therapy, I know is big there too. Just to mess with everyone. They mess with me a lot too. It's all in good fun. I would be most interested in this one from what I've seen so far. Armoire, also a pretty safe choice. Watch Peaberry. That's interesting one. That's a very expensive coffee now that I'm looking at it. So these are other ones that I would suggest. Abu. You know what? I would go out on a limb and suggest one of the Abu coffees. Underrated producer. So yeah, maybe something from Archers. There's Firestone Washed. Wow, they have so many coffees. One of the best selections out of any coffee roaster out there. Nearly 50 gram sub. All right. But yeah, I'm going to end this stream right there. So thank you guys very much for all of your contributions. And we definitely have some pretty good picks for this. So I hope everyone has a wonderful rest of your day.